What up, my peoples? Welcome to Rants and Randomness. This is my podcast covering all things pop culture and relevant to our lives. I am the side-eye sorceress, Luvvie Ajayi. And in this podcast, there will be judgment, but lovingly. There will be shade, but that's necessary sometimes. And there will be, of course, rants, because why not? There will be randomness with me spotlighting things I love. And there will be special guests, people you already know and love, and people you need to know. So let's jump into it. So last week, I went to Power Rising, a summit that was in Atlanta about building the agenda for Black women, created by the Colored Girls, which includes Leah Daughtry, Mignon Moore, Yolanda Caraway, Donna Brazile. And at the conference, I was invited to speak at the Authors Showcase. So I got on stage with 5 other women, Beverly Bond, Brittany Cooper, Tiffany Dufu, Veronica Chambers, and Dawn Davis. And we had to read from our books and maybe give a statement. So naturally, I wanted to read from I'm Judging You, the Do Better Manual, the chapter that I wrote as a bonus chapter for my hardcover, which dropped in November 2017. So in trying to figure out what to read, I was like, okay, what will grab people's attention at this summit where they've been listening to people all day? What will make them kind of be like, all right, I got to pay attention? So I decided to do that final chapter called America, We Didn't Do Better, my postscript. So I read a little bit about it, about how when I wrote my book, I wasn't sure what, I didn't realize how timely my book would be. And so after I read that chapter, I was like, I looked in the audience and I saw Miss Cicely Tyson sitting in the front table. And I was like, oh my God, she is one of my biggest role models, because not only is she this actress who's been in the game for such a long time, for decades, for like half a century, she also is somebody who has dedicated her career to truth-telling. Cicely is somebody who, back in the day, back when like segregation was actually a thing, she was speaking up against it, and she's used her platform to talk about injustice and racism in Hollywood. So when I saw her sitting there and she was watching and paying attention to me reading this chapter, I was like, wait a minute, I quoted her in this book. So after I read the bit in the main chapter that I was reading, I went to the last chapter of the book itself, which is called Do Something That Matters. And I said, I just want to take this time to thank Miss Cicely Tyson for paving the way for truth tellers like myself. Like, we are able to be who we are because of presence of people like her. And then I read the passage in my book where I quoted her. So here's that piece. Cicely Tyson, the matron saint of everything amazing, once said, in my early years, there were a number of experiences that made me decide I could not afford the luxury of just being an actress. There were a number of issues I wanted to address, and I wanted to use my career as a platform. That quote makes me fist pump, and it makes me look around and wonder why that type of courage cannot be more common. And when I read that, she gestured to me from her seat, like hand to her heart. I was like, I cannot believe this moment. It was so surreal for this woman who I quoted in my first ever manifesto to be there, to be able to hear her words right back to her. It just meant the world. So when we got off the stage, I was like, I have to meet her. So I went backstage where she was sitting, and I was just like, thank you for being who you are, because you mean a lot. Your very presence is courage. And she grabbed my hands and said, you are dynamic. You are so dynamic. And I was like, oh my God. And she like looked me dead in the face. I was like, oh, I'm having a moment. It was so dope. And we took this picture together, and my week, my month, my year was made because I met Miss Tyson, and I felt like I was anointed by her, okay? So the next day when I got back home, I tweeted the picture of her and I said, yesterday I met Miss Cicely Tyson, and I talked about the experience and how I got to read her quote right back to her and how it kind of took her by surprise. And then a couple of hours later, I go on Twitter and she had replied back to me and said, "Luvvie, thank you for quoting me in your book, Continue to Soar." Child, let me tell you now, can't nobody tell me nothing. What? Miss Tyson done really anointed me. This woman took the time out her day, okay, to go ahead and put an exclamation point on that meeting. She even put her initials so I know it's real. Child, I could not catch my breath for like 3 minutes. I just wanted to lay out on the ground and rock back and forth ancestrally. Because when the Queen Mother drops this dime on you, okay, when she gives your whole spirit everything it needs, what you gonna do for the rest of the day? Child, literally, can't nobody tell me nothing. So it was just amazing, dream come true type experience. And I had to share with y'all because that is my feel-good story that I feel like y'all need to hear, okay, in this week. Shout out to Miss Cicely Tyson for continuing to be a beacon of light in this work. We see you. We love you. We praise you. We respect you. So, yeah, man, felt amazing. What is on my mind this week to rant about is people's expectations of other people on social media in terms of helping them promote their work. Now, I am a fan of using social media to talk about your work, to tell your story. I do it every single day. I've been doing it for 15 years. Now, here's the thing. I'm also a supporter of people who are building their brands, their businesses. You know, starting something from scratch is not easy, and you need all the help possible. However, the way to do it is not from asking random strangers to promote your work without having done anything or said anything to them before. Example, I would get a DM from somebody who's never messaged me before saying, "Hey, I'm having an event. Can you share it with your followers or on your newsfeed?" And I'm always like, what is the logic behind it? Because it's essentially like walking up to a stranger on the street and handing them your business card and saying, "Hey, hire me and tell your friends to hire me." And you're like, wait, I don't even know your name. It's really important for people to behave on social media like they would in real life. Just act like anything you're doing on the computer is in real life. How you wouldn't walk into a conference room and just yell, "Hey, follow me." It's the same reason why you shouldn't comment randomly on somebody's Instagram picture of themselves with, "Hey, follow back." There's a way to do everything. So you cannot withdraw from an account you haven't deposited in. And I mean, you cannot expect favors from people who you don't have relationships with. If you were somebody who was like, "Hey, there's this notable person who I want to know my work," how you get them to pay attention is not by asking them to promote your work immediately. How you do it is you comment on their pictures and with relevant comments. "Love your picture. Oh my God, I love your work. Oh, you asked for this resource. I know where you can get that." So they start being familiar with seeing your name in their orbit, right? That's how you first get their attention. And then after you've put in some work in that they know who you are, then you can roll into their DMs and say, "Hey, I've been following you for 15 years. Here's what I've been doing. Here's my work. I would just love for you to check it out." Just ask them to check it out. Don't ask them in that moment to share your work. So let's say they checked it out and say, "Oh my God, this is actually kind of dope." Then you ask, "Hey, would you be willing to share it?" Or, "You know what? I see you love my piece of art. I'm going to make you one. Can I send it to you?" Sure. That's a way to get somebody to promote your work. Give them something. So instead of just like shooting your shot blindly, which happens so often and always stuns me, you got to put in some like strategy behind it. Shoot your shot. There's nothing wrong with, hitting somebody who you admire or respect up and hoping they love your work. But you can't first jump in by being like, "Hey, share this." Related, people who send GoFundMe links and say, "Hey, can you share my GoFundMe?" Here's the thing. I am a bleeding heart. I'm always like, oh my God, touched by people's stories. I can't ever share people's GoFundMes. And the reason why is because everybody's story is valid. Everything that I'm seeing like fundraisers for like kids who need transplants, and that's necessary. And I'm also mad that our country requires us to do this because our insurance sucks. But that's a whole other rant for another day. But why it's hard to promote certain things like that is because when you say yes to one, you have to say yes to all. And for me, I don't know how I can pick who I say yes to. Like, I can't say this one person's fundraiser is more valid than somebody else and then share one person's and not share other people. So my blanket policy for it is I don't share anybody's GoFundMe, just to make sure I'm not having to make the choice of whose fundraiser is worth amplifying or not. So when I say no, it is with love, but it's with also making sure I'm protecting my space and protecting my platform, and people just understanding that what somebody else has built, you're not entitled to it. When they share your work, it's kindness. So yeah, I just think it's really important for people to understand that, build relationships, pull from people who you deposited into. I have a lot of people who I share their work because they've been reading my work for a long time. They sent me a t-shirt and I'm like, oh, absolutely. When I put it on, I'll absolutely tell people where I got it from. But to be somebody who's never messaged anybody, just drop a link and be like, hey, can you promote this? The answer will be no, 99% of the time, 99.9%. And I think this is a policy that a lot of people who have big followings follow because it just protects us. Just put in the work, y'all. Put in the work. It's doable. Shoot your shot, y'all. Shoot your shot. How I got my assistant was because she shot her shot. But she did it so correct that I couldn't say no. So how you approach people, do it so well that they can't say no to you. Where I'm like, man, they came super correct. You know what? Yeah, I will share this piece of art because it's so dope. Just be super correct. That's all I'm asking, okay? That's all. We can do it. It can be done. So, all right, I just had to put that out there. Yeah, so that's my rant of the week. So for my randomness, whenever I find something that I love, I always want to tell people about it just because I'm like, you got to know about this. One of my favorite books ever is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. When I tell you one of my favorite books ever, this is not a small book. It's like, I think there's like 500 pages. I don't know. But I read it in one day. This book is about a Nigerian girl who moved to the U.S. to study and started a blog where she started talking about race and politics and culture in the United States. I was like, oh, snap. Chimamanda wrote about me. I mean, she didn't because she didn't know who I was, but I feel like this main character whose name is Ifemelu is me. Actually, the first 3 letters of her name is the first 3 letters of my name. I read this book. I drank it in a day. I was on vacation in Puerto Rico 4 years ago when I read it. And it's so good. It just tells this really good story and also has a love story embedded in it. It's a solid book. Chimamanda is one of my favorite writers, and her as a Nigerian woman, her views and her boldness and just her gifts, I really admire her. And that book actually got optioned by Lupita Nyong'o to be turned into a movie. And I was like, listen, if y'all need a consultant on set, I am available. Okay, I will fetch coffee. I don't really make good coffee, but I'll bring it to you. If y'all need somebody to just be like, yup, that's correct, I'm here. This book is just really good. And I think it's thoughtful. You kind of lose yourself in it. It's one of those books that transforms you to the world. And I just love it, and I always recommend that people get it. I am a huge fan. Americana, that's Americanah by Chimamanda Adichie. You might know her from her TED Talk, We Should All Be Feminists, which is I think in the top 25 most popular TED Talks of all time. So, yeah, pick that book up. Give it some time because not everybody can finish it in a day. I'm not expecting that. And, yeah, I think you'll love it. All right, cool. So time to get to my conversation with Myleik Teele, who's my guest this week. All right, so I'm super excited because today I'm chatting with Myleik Teele, who is somebody who I have sky-high respect for. She's so dope, y'all. She's part of my Glow Up Squad also, which is a group of women who doing dope things and supporting each other through it. She has a podcast called My Taught You, and it is so good. So after you listen to this podcast, go listen to hers. I'm gonna give y'all a little bio so you can understand the magic that she is. So, Myleik is the founder and chief experience officer of Curlbox, the first monthly subscription service for naturally curly hair. And since the launch of Curlbox in 2011, L'Oreal, Procter & Gamble, Target, Walmart, Shea Moisture is a short list of brands that have trusted her vision of making the lives of Black women easier by providing them with a high quality selection of products. And here's the thing. Myleik started her podcast like in 2011 or something like that, back when podcasts weren't even popping. And her podcast has grown to like, in 2016, she had 2 million downloads. She's basically a friend, mentor. She's just all around dope person. So I'm super excited to be having her. Myleik, you are so dope for being on this show. You're my second guest, yo.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be your second guest, and I'm glad that you are podcasting.
Let me tell y'all the story about how I deboed my way onto Myleik's podcast.
Please do. Please tell this.
I need people to know. So when my book was coming out in 2016, I was like, Lord, I'm going to need this book to fly off the shelves. I need I'm Judging You to be a New York Times bestseller. So I need my friends to help me promote it. So I hit up Myleik like, Myleik, I love your podcast. I need to be on your podcast because my book comes out in 2 months. And she's like, Luvvie, I don't interview people on my podcast. I said, let me tell you how you can. Go ahead and get a Zencastr account.
Right.
I'm going to call in and you go ahead and interview me about this book. And Myleik was like, yes.
I had to. You left me with no choice. You were like, I don't know how to do it. It's not an option.
You know what's funny? I just did I was talking about earlier. I was talking about how like you have to give people propositions they can't say no to, or they have a hard time saying no to.
Right. Exactly. It's like, how can you say no? Because it's like, okay, well, I don't really know how to do this, and you're like, okay, well, you need a Zencastr account. I'm like, okay, and I did want to help. You know how I am. It's like I wanted to help you. Anything that I could do to help you get closer to your dream of becoming a New York Times bestseller, I was willing to do. So I'm like, okay, if I never interview anybody again, I definitely will interview you. And everybody really loved that interview. Like, it got a ton of listens because everybody loved, I guess, the format. And now when I interview people, I have to know them or have some kind of relationship with them because I feel like it helps my interviews.
Yeah.
So, it's like it helps me to have just, more real conversation. So, yes, you did debo your way.
I did. And you know what's funny? Like, I really appreciated that because you basically kind of like took this risk and went away from your usual format. So,
yeah.
And it meant a lot for me because a lot of times people were just like, no, shut it down. And that for me felt like sisterhood. So I really appreciated that. And that really, people will still tweet and be like, oh my God, I found you through Myleik's podcast. And I loved it. So I was like, when it was time for this podcast, I'm like, honestly, your podcast inspired me to do this.
Awesome.
Because I think there's space for Black women to show love and vulnerability across the way. And I think that's also one of the things about you that I admired the most is you're actually not just this astute businesswoman who like is about her shit, but you are somebody who inspires women to show the pain and the struggles and the grit behind the glory.
Wow. I don't know that it's interesting because I don't know if that's what I set out to do, but I felt like it was something that was missing.
Yeah.
It's like if it was a conversation with my 25-year-old self, what would I want to know? And I just felt like there just weren't enough of us talking about what we go through, specific to us because it's different, and it's like a lot of us have family trauma. A lot of us don't know what the hell to do with money. You and I talk about that. There's so many things that we don't know that I feel like I spent so much time learning. And I was like, I have to tell these girls about this because I feel like collectively we can all move together, and that's super important to me.
I think like part of my thing, which is also seems to be your thing, is that like, I don't like information hoarding. Like, I don't like when people know something and don't share it. Because I'm like, why are you holding on to this thing that's useful for other people to know?
Right. I think it's because we feel like there's not enough room for all of us. We're used to there just being like token experiences, right? So it's like, well, if I've made it, no one else can make it. Now, I will say this. I do have an issue, and you may want to beat me up on this. I do have an issue with people who ask you, who did your logo? Who did this? Who did that? And it's just like, who did your boxes? And it's just like, this is how I make a living, honey. I can't tell you who made my boxes, because if I go into McDonald's and ask them who makes their fried cartons, they are not going to tell me.
No, that's actually not a bad thing. That's the thing. It's not
Yeah.
saying that we need to give everybody the secret sauce, the recipe to everything, because
Right.
people need to do their own work. That's another thing.
They
People got
do.
lazy. People got real lazy.
Yes.
It's like, who did that? Who did that? I'm like, like I tell you, that's the thing. Like in my work, I don't have physical. I do have physical products like T-shirts and whatever with T's in the trap.
Yeah.
But people want to know the exact roadmap that you took, not understanding that you can have the exact map and still be late. Like,
right.
You can, like, it might not be what works for you. So everyone's got to figure that out.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time and I've talked about how I launched Curlbox ad nauseum in various interviews. And I always tell people what I did back then would not work today. So I can tell you what I did, but it's 2018. It's not going to work. Like sending out press releases don't always work anymore. And, it's just it's a totally different game that we're playing. Like I think Instagram was brand new when I launched Curlbox. So I was able to take advantage of like spamming Instagram. Like back when Instagram, when I started, it was cool to post like one picture a week, and I got on there posting like 3 or 4 a day. And, that's kind of how we blew up, is that we had I think I had like 12,000 Instagram followers the first year, which was a lot.
That is a lot.
That was a lot for Instagram back then.
And now you got to have the game changes, right? And I think being a forever student is necessary. Like,
absolutely.
You got to keep studying.
You have to be. Like, I think I just read something yesterday that said that the average chess master has 5,000 hours of study, more hours of study than an intermediate player. And I think that that's what people think, that practice, being in practice, working is studying, but it's not studying. So, when I meet a lot of young women, I've been reading books, tons of books, to help myself professionally for years. So, I don't understand when young people are working and they expect to learn everything from their boss.
Yeah.
It's like your boss cannot teach you everything because they're doing their job, and they don't do any sort of outside reading. It's like they do the job every day, and then they're like, I deserve a raise because I've been here for a year. It's like, but what have you done differently in a year? What have you brought to the table in a year? How have you increased the bottom line in a year? That's what makes you worthy of a raise, people.
Look, every single day, I just be like, I want people to understand. What's funny is I want people to understand how not hard it is to be exceptional. And I know that sounds crazy. Being exceptional is like doing more than the last person or most people would do.
Right.
It's not necessarily mean you jumping out your bones and working for 88 hours a week. It might just mean you're working so well that you're making your boss's life so much easier.
Right. It's the things where I go, it's small things like showing up on time, right? And every time I hear somebody say, well, I'm late because it was raining. And I'm like, so is this your first time driving in the rain?
Right.
Just tell me that, It's like, it's not that difficult to be exceptional, but I just think that so many people are, unfortunately, either unmotivated or lazy and not realizing that there's a great deal of competition out here. It's like there's somebody who wants to do what you're doing at every moment. And you have to remember that when you wake up. It's like eat or be eaten. And every morning I'm trying to eat.
Eat or be eaten. Yes.
Yes. Every day I'm eating. And that's is super important.
I mean, I just need people to be more excellent. And every day on your Insta stories, you post something that you wrote years ago that now still fits. And I'm like, yes, please remind people excellence is necessary in whatever field they're doing. Excellence is not perfection either.
No, it's not. It's showing up and doing your best. And a lot of times I think people, they think that work is going to be, they look at you and your work looks really fun. You're posing with all these famous people. Right. You're constantly on a plane. But what they don't realize is that you're getting up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning to get to a flight to get to somewhere else.
Right.
It looks fun on the gram, but call me, you're getting up, you're not, you're skipping meals sometimes because you don't really have the time.
All the time.
You don't really have the time to eat. You have these opportunities that you need to be prepared for, so you have to rehearse. You have to do a multitude of things, and it's just like, if you don't have excellent practices in place, you will not make it if in the event that you get to this place that you see Luvvie in. You probably won't even get to that place, And I think sometimes, you posted something on your Facebook, Luvvie, where back when I had a Facebook group, back when I was ambitious, I was like, I can't do this. But back when I had a Facebook group, somebody wrote like, Luvvie said that it's important to take naps, and people really clung to that of like, the rest conversation is really popular, but I don't think, I was like, Luvvie is taking naps after being up for 20 hours.
Right.
He's not getting up at 8 and napping at 11. Y'all are missing it. And I was like, I don't know anybody who works harder than this girl. So yes, she's saying like she's team sleeping. She doesn't, stay up all night, but there are times when she does, she does what she has to do.
And I think people also, right now the whole like boss up is like a big thing.
Yeah.
And one thing you beat the drum over is like, no, take care of yourself as you're bossing up. And you've been talking about therapy, and you're part of the issue why I was like, I'm going to also talk about me being in therapy, because I'm like, all right, one person talking about it is one thing, but if two of us who are considered like powerful, bossy women are doing this, maybe it'll inspire other people to seek it out and know it's nothing to be hiding.
It's not. I think, once I started therapy and I really started to see the impact that it was having on my life, I was like, I don't know how any like high profile person survives without going to therapy. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of people think it's like, oh, I have to have experienced this deep pain or trauma, parental death, or some sexual abuse or something like that. And sometimes it's like going from one level to the next is a total mind fuck,
Yes.
And
it's God.
It's about all of a sudden. I remember I went from the bank calling me about my overdraft to the bank calling me to see how I was doing.
They're doing check-ins and wellness check-ins now.
Yeah, how are you? And then the whole Miss Teele thing. I went from Myleik to Miss Teele to people. And that just really blew my mind. And so it was just this thing of, I had spent so much of my life struggling, and then all of a sudden there's car service and red carpet and all this free stuff. Yeah. And I remember saying to my therapist, like, I need to stay grounded. Like, I cannot be Mariah Carey on the treadmill in like clear heels. Like,
that is not your portion, girl. That is not your portion.
I'm like, I cannot, so there's that. And then there's, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but people think that when you have money that you no longer have problems. So nobody feels the need to say, how are you anymore? Yeah. It's like nobody cares to check in. And, I think there was this one time I told people, I said, when you succeed, you get to that point. I was like, I'm going to tell you, I was like, think about the number one person in your life that you feel would never betray you, turn their back on you, stop being your friend. I said, I want you to think of the number one person. And I was like, that is going to be the person to do it.
Oh, my God.
And everyone's like, oh, I don't, they never would. And I said, there's something about becoming successful that the one person that you thought you would have paid money on would never do that. They end up doing it.
Can I tell you that happened last year?
I believe it. It happens. And it's like, how can you need therapy, because it's like, what did I do?
Yeah. Like, you're like, I didn't change, but people have changed towards me. Like, yes. And it's the weirdest thing, because, again, people will, like, message me, people who I went to high school with, who'd be like, you probably don't remember me, but, and I'm like, bruh, we were in the same club together. Why would I not remember you? Right. Because all of a sudden I have followers. Like,
yeah,
it's weird. Yeah, and honestly, like, I talked to my therapist about that, too, because fear of success is real.
Yep.
Like, being like, I don't want my life to change to the point that I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's something we talk about frequently because it is a mind fuck. It's one of those things that's like, one, you ask yourself like, holy shit, how did this happen?
Right.
Like when dreams start coming true, you're like, wait, what? I'm not sure
Right.
I was prepared for this. I don't know.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then too, when people start behaving differently towards you, because that's another thing
Yes.
is people will cheer you on sometimes up until they feel like you've gotten bigger than them.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very difficult for me. Like, even you came on the retreat, and it's like I go and I try to talk to people, and nobody will talk to me, like, because everybody's just sitting there like, I'm scared, and you're like, why? It's just me,
It's just me.
But people don't, they don't realize that, and they put you on this sort of like pedestal. So it's difficult. But I mean, I've been doing therapy I started like the first year. So I would say I'm now on I think August will be my 6th year of consistent therapy. I go every Tuesday. I block my calendar 1 hour before I go just to sort of clear my mind. And we talk about, all kinds of stuff, familial stuff, a lot of professional stuff, because being in charge is hard. Being in charge of other people, paying bills, is difficult. And so there's just a lot of things that we cover. And now that I'm going to become a parent, that has become a whole, I've been independent for the last 20 years. I've not had to think about another soul. And now I'm going to have to care. I'm going to have to feed somebody 3 times a day.
Girl, not 3 times. Girl, not 3 times.
3 times. Well, I mean, babies more, but once they become bigger, 6, 7, I'm going to have to like make sure that this person is fed and clothed for the next 2 decades,
But honestly, I think you are well equipped because you've been running a company, okay?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying parenting is company owning, but you are also like very methodical and disciplined. Like you be posting on Insta stories, you going to work out at 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, girl, what? How? And then you be like cooking too. I'm like, oh, girl, no. I'm like, you do so much during your day. I'm like, bro, how does she even run this business when she's still cooking and doing stuff and exercising? And I'm not that I am so useless.
I tell people my superpower is time, use of time. Like I'm really serious about my time and how I let people use it or not use it. And like, you can't just call me unscheduled.
Oh,
not
I
during
hate that.
the week.
I hate that, girl. Oh no.
Yeah, you have to, and it's not, I'm trying to be bougie. It's just, this is how I run my life. This is how I'm able to go to the gym and cook dinner and run a company, is that, for the most part, 90% of my calls are scheduled, and meetings and lunches and dinners and visits. I keep it all on the calendar.
See, I need to get better at that. When people actually get personally offended when people who are not friends call me without being on my calendar.
Yeah.
Like, if you was to call me, cool. I'd be like, wait. You just call me for business unscheduled? What is this? I'd be getting mad.
Yes, it's not okay. And I think sometimes people don't understand that. They don't understand how hectic our lives. I've done phone interviews this morning. I've got to run out and get a Valentine's Day gift. Is the hour break that I have between my next client call. So no, you can't really call, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, and it's okay. And boundaries, Lord. So what is the thing that you have to do every single day? What is your and you're big on self-care. Like, what is your big, I must do this every day?
Wow. My big probably I must do this every day is that I am a sort of real news junkie, in a sense of like, I just love to know what's going on in the world. So first thing I do every day, even on weekends, is I check the news. And so I'm signed up for New York Times. They send me an email every morning with what's happening. So I go through that, and I really love it. And I don't know if you have listened to their New York Times, The Daily podcast. It's amazing.
No, I must.
It's basically like a little 20-minute deep dive on like politics, all the stuff that we have no idea what's really going on. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think yesterday's episode was like how Nancy Pelosi, House Leader, which I wouldn't even know any of this, spoke for 8 hours on the floor last week. Yeah, like they said she didn't stop for a bathroom break. She didn't sip water.
What?
You have to listen. It's crazy. So I love, because it's like 20 minutes of a deep dive on news that I probably wouldn't know about otherwise.
But that's the opposite for me. if me listen to the news stresses me out.
No, but this is good because he explains it and breaks it down and helps you understand in a very digestible manner. So the host, he'll say, so tell us what, if the government's going to shut down, what does that mean? It's like just little things like that I
Wait,
don't
what's it
really.
called? New York Times?
The Daily.
The
It's
Daily.
It's 20 minutes, comes out Monday through Friday, and it's essentially like a deep dive into like one news story a day. And it's good. It's really good, and it helps you. I feel like as Americans, especially in this climate, we should be more informed.
Yes.
And it helps you take a quick deep dive into like an article that you might open up and be like, what is it? Like the stock market, going down several points. Like, what does that mean for Americans?
I saw my portfolio drop. I said, Lord.
I won't even open my portfolio.
I got my statement. I was like, wait, damn it. Okay.
Yes. But now's the time to start putting more money in while the market's down.
True.
So I love the Daily. It's my, news, a little New York Times every day is something that I have to do.
So I happened to catch you right before you go on break because you are about to bring forth a baby human. A baby human to this world who I am so excited for. He's going to be the most well-read, cutest, well-dressed kid ever.
Yes. I hope so.
He already has an amazing shoe collection.
He does.
Which is ridiculous. I'm also going to be getting him some custom Chucks with his name on it.
Oh, my God. That'll be awesome.
Oh, that's happening. So, because I'm that auntie who must buy all the baby shoes, especially ones with their names on it, because I like stuff with my name on it. So,
awesome.
How are you feeling?
What's crazy is that I went to the doctor yesterday and he told me that my baby might be late because I'm so relaxed. So I go in every week for the stress test. And I think because I planned this out of like, I knew when I was due in March. I have gotten most of my work done. I'm taking off all next week and I'm going to do a couple more days of work after that. And, I'm pretty much all set till about June or July in terms of what I need to do.
Nice.
So now it's just figuring out how to, babies require so much stuff, Luvvie. It's like, it's mind blowing. Diapers, wipes, socks, mittens, hats, onesies,
bibs,
receiving blankets, bibs, bottles, nipples. Like, I'm like, oh my God, where do I put all this stuff? So I'm going to be preparing for him to come, but I feel amazing. I think the wonderful thing about this pregnancy, if it did nothing else, I used to think that I had my life all together. I really did. And what this pregnancy taught me was this baby was like, is this person being kind to you? If they're not, cut them. Is this worth your time? Because I'm already busy as it is, but then with a pregnancy, you don't know if you're going to be sleepy. You have to eat. I feel like he forced me to reinforce my boundaries. And for that, I've never felt more calm because I really just stopped dealing with people who weren't serving me. And it was easy to do. And my therapist said that it's one thing to try to protect your own boundaries, but when it comes to protecting your kids' boundaries, like you'll flex up even harder.
Yes.
And that's been amazing.
That is so good to hear. I'm so excited for you, and I think you're going to be an amazing mom.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to see this little gumdrop.
Awesome. Yes, you will see him soon.
Oh my gosh. So thank you so much for being on
Luvvie.
Rants and Randomness. You are amazing as
Thank
always.
You, Luvvie. And
so much love.
Congratulations to you launching this podcast. I can't wait to listen.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm so excited. And I'm going to make sure that people follow you on all over Instagram and Twitter.
I'm at Myleik everywhere, Myleik.
Boom. Y'all go ahead and follow and sign up for her podcast. Like, you need to listen to My Taught You. So mytaughtyou.com is the website. Y'all can listen to back episodes.
Yes. Give it a listen. And listen to Luvvie's episode for sure.
Oh my God. And subscribe to her podcast too. It's good.
Thank you, Luvvie.
Bye.
Bye.
Do y'all see why she's one of my favorite people? She is just so brilliant. And every time I talk to her, I learn so much. So shout out to Myleik for joining me as my second guest on this episode of Rants and Random. Well, no, actually, she's my second guest, period, on Rant and Randomness, okay? History. Anyway, so follow Myleik on social media. You want to follow her tweets and her Instagram account. She's Myleik. And again, you want to listen to her podcast. It's like listening to your big sister every episode. And sign up for her newsletter. So you want to go to mytaughtyou.com for that. And this is episode 2 of Rants and Randomness. I'm hoping you're loving it. I hope you subscribe. Much love to the Chicago Recording Company and Sav Media for partnering with me on this. And subscribe to Rants and Randomness on Apple Podcasts and rate it. I need your ratings, please and thank you. It's also now available on Google Play and Stitcher. Follow me on social at Luvvie everywhere. That's Luvvie, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the whole likes. So this has been episode 2 of Rant and Randomness. See you on the next one.